Welcome, everyone, to episode 35 of the Thundercraps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, a cinder in the furnace of the damned, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, a man who should be the guy fighting the guy who gave him that haircut, Kyle Hoagland.
That's actually one of my favorite ones. What's going on, everybody?
How is it going? You know, what's funny is I really didn't think this week was very quotable, but then I'm scrolling back through some of it, and I saw that one. I laughed. I go, oh, there's one. That one will do it.
Hey, if there's any reason that we appreciate the return of Prince Iakea, at least it gave us a good rip on me.
That it did. Of course, it is October 8th, 1998. We are 17 days away from Halloween Havoc, Kyle. And, we kind of alluded to it last week. This is, in some ways, while they won't say as much, it is the WrestleMania for WCW. And the card's coming together and looking pretty good.
It is, and I think we talked about that a little bit last week about looking at the card on paper. I mean, it's a pretty hype card as far as just a. I don't know if I would say dream matches, but it's kind of like if you really wanted to see like best friends or brothers or two people that do the sharpshooter for a finisher. This is definitely the pay-per-view you wanted to see.
Well, yeah, I mean you've got Goldberg DDP. That's a lot. There's a lot of hype behind
and I didn't even
that.
mention that one. Yeah,
Hogan and Warrior. Say what you want about it. People were looking forward to that. Hall and Nash is a feud. Of course, the Steiner brothers is going to come to its conclusion finally, and as we find out here tonight. To your point, Sting and Bret Hart. So, I mean, right there, just in that little group there, we're building quite a good card here as we head into this pay-per-view.
Exactly, and I mean, really, as far as titles are concerned, I think we only talked about two of them in this in that kind of bunch of people that are fighting. So a lot of these are grudge matches that the stakes are completely personal. And then obviously you have, I think, the United States title in there and the world title in there. But I mean, the Bret versus Sting would really the U.S. title is a complete afterthought. Oh,
absolutely. You don't even need the title in that match to make it a match worth watching. And the fact that it's theirs, even better. That said, let's just move into our show. We're live this week from Indianapolis. And we got the pyros going off, and that laughter starts playing, and Tony Schiavone is furious. He is pissed off. He wants to know why this laughing keeps taking place during their show and why the production team is not telling them, and he's sick of it, and he wants somebody to tell him why the hell there's all this laughing taking place.
And you would think, again, this would be classic TV show or classic wrestling TV show where all those types of things are things I'm sure he could have asked about before going on the air. Just like how two wrestlers, instead of just talking about in the back, they want to go out and have a promo with each other in the middle of the ring to air out things that they could have easily just done in private. So I guess it's par for the course.
That it is. They let us know, of course, it's Heenan, it's Schiavone, it's Marshall, and Tenay is not going to be with him tonight because he's at a bar with Scott Hall drinking.
Which also means we got Lee Marshall for 2 hours.
That we do, and they let us know our main event, Kyle. Fear not, Stevie Ray is back in our main event here on Thunder, and he's wrestling Lex Luger. So those are two of the probably, if we tallied up who was in the main events on Thunder, Lex Luger, Stevie Ray got to be right up there at the top. So now we get to see them go head-to-head against each other for the king of Thunder main events.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all I thought about was like, oh my God, this could crown who really is the main event of Thunder. Other than maybe, I think the Giant
night, right?
The third man would be the Giant probably at this point.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. That said, we do get connected. We go to his bar. Mike Tenay's there, and Scott Hall's in the background while Tenay's kind of doing his intro, and he's yelling in the background, "Oh, hi, Tony!" Hall acting really drunk here. And I gotta be honest, I was thoroughly entertained, and I thought Scott Hall was playing a fantastic drunk here at the bar. He says he's got his back to the wall like John Wayne, and he's calling out Kevin Nash, and he says, bring your 7 foot. And then he looks at him and goes, "Can I say butt?" And here on that, on TBS, so he's calling out Nash to come to this bar and fight him. And he says, leave those other jabrones back there at the arena and just come here. So we go back to commentary team, and all of a sudden they let us know that there's a development taking place, and you see a limo peeling out of the arena, and it must be Kevin Nash as he's heading towards the bar.
Which, of course, we know this because his limo is definitely distinctively. You can tell it's Kevin Nash's because why? I just find it funny. Like, we
Mike
see a
today
limo. It must be Kevin Nash's.
Or Lee Marshall goes, that is Kevin Nash's limo. So we got to trust Lee Marshall here that he knows that is Nash's limo. So it looks like we might get a bar brawl between Hall and Nash. Kyle, we're not going to wait 17 days. We're going to have it happen tonight on Thunder.
I'm not excited about it. Sorry.
So what you will be excited about is our opening bout. We got Canyon here. He's going to come out. Of course, he's going to ask who's better than Canyon, and he's upset that the fans continue to not know that the correct answer is nobody, while the fans continue to say everybody. And Lee Marshall actually had a good quote here during this match, which actually I think it was before the match even started. He said that Canyon is so taken aback by himself that he's surprised he doesn't even call himself the Grand Canyon, which I thought was phenomenal. It might be the best thing Lee has ever said.
Are you making fun of it, or are you actually saying like that's a classic Lee thing to say?
It's classic. Like I feel like Canyon, that should be Canyon's finisher. It shouldn't have been the Flatliner. It should be the Grand Canyon. Like I love it. I love everything about it.
All right, fine. All right. Like I guess Lee Marshall has some worth in this company.
That said, his opponent is Prince Iaukea, which it only took Shivani about 3.5 seconds of him walking out to announce that he was the former television champion.
I must have missed that because
you did.
I was losing it. I was losing it that no one had mentioned it. But yeah, and plus I thought to myself, oh my God, Mike Tenay's not here either. Who's going to be there to mention that he was a former TV champion?
No, I mean I don't even think they said his name yet. He was walking out, and Shivani's like the former television champion Prince Iaukea. I was like, God damn it, Tony! At least let him get into the ring first. So we got Prince Iaukea wrestling Canyon. Iaukea is going to take a nasty top rope neck breaker, almost like the Villano Ford death that Raven and Canyon delivered a couple weeks ago. And this, of course, is when Heenan made the comment about Prince Iaukea haircut and whatever the hell you call that haircut he's got. And Canyon is going to win this match with the Flatliner. I gave the match 2.25 stars, though. I thought the ending kind of came quickly after it was a little bit back and forth. And I thought maybe the electric chair to set him up was a little botched, but for the most part, I thought it was a fun match and a good way to kick off Thunder.
I was back and forth about it. I mean, I also gave it 2.25 stars. The more I watched it a second time, and I think other than just the excitement of seeing yet another person trying out a new hairdo on Thunder, joining Hugh Morris and Mari Jannetty, I thought the ending was definitely sloppy. Kenny kind of just basically just picks up IK and puts him in the Flatliner, which I just never liked that. It's a dull way to win when the finisher that you have is something that you can set up much better. It's kind of like the Diamond Cutter. Like there's not a lot of times where, usually you flow into the Diamond Cutter. You kind of transition into the Diamond Cutter, or you have like a cool way of like comboing into the Diamond Cutter. I think the Flatliner has something very similar, but at the same time, like when I watched it the second time, I realized how much this match really didn't do much for me. And IK is still very much not an interesting person, and also Canyon is kind of all over the place as far as being a squash jobber one week and then getting crushed by Goldberg, and then he's Raven's lackey, and then he's squashing Prince Iaukea, and he's getting a lot of time on TV doing these promos. I'm very confused of where Canyon exactly fits in the ecosystem of WCW.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think they want him to be kind of like Raven. I mean, in some ways, Raven's that same way, right? I mean, I guess he doesn't get squashed, but he jobs against anybody who's anybody, and then squashes anybody who's not anybody. And I feel like that's kind of where Canyon's going to end up.
It could be. And as I said, he's definitely got talent. I think they just don't have room for him anywhere. And so instead of like either making him an enhancement talent, they make him I don't know what you would call it. It's like almost like a transitional mid-carder.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I won't argue that. After the match, though, we're going to go to the backstage, and Jericho is pounding on the locker room. I used that term loosely, of course. It's a double doors with a handwritten sign that says Goldberg on it, like it's Goldberg's locker room. And, he's basically yelling at Goldberg to come out and fight him. And Schiavone's going to let us know that Goldberg is not here tonight. So,
which is classic Jericho. That's basically, I think every time he's on Thunder, he's always calling out somebody who's not actually at the show. Right.
After this, we're going to get a Scott Steiner promo where it's all in black and white. He's in a room surrounded by trophies, and they it's just a bunch of like cuts, like showing him at different angles while he's talking and saying his brother basically rode his coattails. And they kind of show clips of Scott Steiner dominating in their tag match, and then shots of Rick Steiner getting double teamed and beaten up in their tag matches. Basically says that Rick was just there for the glory, and he was Scott was a true star of that. And I actually really enjoyed this promo. I thought it did well. I thought it made I thought it did well for Scott, of course, coming off as I'm the better brother in the whole thing. But I thought it was a well done promo.
And especially because he's not. I don't think Scott Steiner still is not 100% used to doing like a live. All one cut kind of promo. So it was good to kind of package something together for him. So I think I just noticed too that they also cut in like mid sentence. Like there was a lot of times where he was saying one sentence, but they literally went to two cuts. Like where I'm like, wow, there must have been a lot of takes if they had to go in between.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was probably not something done in 20 minutes or something like that. But I thought it came off well. What didn't I don't think come off well was the following promo where Scott and Buff are going to come out into the ring, and they start talking about apparently Buff Bagwell's mom must have come out on Nitro, and this is going to cause some tension. But before they get into that, of course, they open up saying we don't like Indianapolis, which is the cheapest of cheap heat. I mean, you can't get much cheaper heat than just saying we don't like the city we're in.
No, it's the cheapest heat. Buff Bagwell. Remember a couple of weeks back when Buff Bagwell was on the phone and told the crowd that he wasn't even there to shut up. Like that's the cheapest heat. He was like, "All right, Tony. First, before I start, I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. So please make sure that everybody in the crowd just shuts up so they can hear what I have to say." And I'm like, "Holy shit! I thought that rule only applied when you're actually in the arena." But he's able to break that fourth wall by yelling at a crowd that he's not even there for.
It's impressive. Of course, they're going to talk about how Halloween Havoc ain't happening. They said Scott's a little out of shape, and they got some doctor's notes that basically excusing him from the match.
So the same fucking story that we've been getting for 8 months.
Yeah. Scott's then going to get on the microphone and says he's got better genes, he's the bigger man, he's better looking, and he's just the flat out better Steiner brother. And of course, this is the big Papa Pump is your hookup, and he says that he's the greatest athlete, and then he says, no woman here has been with me, which Heenan quips. I think there's a reason for that. But then Scotty's going to get on there and say basically he has an issue with Judy Bagwell getting in their business on Nitro. Tells Buff to basically get his mom on a leash. And Buff, is going to say, leave family where family is and, business where business is. And, then Scott's going to basically say that, Judy embarrassed me, you, and the whole NWO. And Buff's going to tap him and basically say, leave my mom out of this. And then Scott's going to say, you touch me again, and I'm going to slap you like I should have done to your mom. And then Buff's going to say, maybe my mom was making some sense. Maybe it was your fault. Maybe Rick is was right all along. And then Scott's going to say, we're NWO for life, so get your mom out of it. And Buff says, you're on your own, big man, and walks out. And, then Scott's going to say, basically, Buff, you needed me and the NWO more than we need you. So some tension now between Buff and Scott over the Judy Bagwell. So they're adding this extra wrench into the feud that was Rick and Scott. And I just don't like it.
Well, first of all, I don't like it because it just doesn't feel authentic at all. It just this feels like it's like they're setting up for something.
It doesn't feel authentic, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that it is authentic. I just don't buy it. I don't like adding this. I don't think this does anybody any service, whether fake or not, to throw this added story into this. This story should be strictly about Scott and Rick And Buff can be there in the side because he's kind of been the chicken shit, sidekick to Scott this whole time. But this should be about Scott and Rick. Don't throw this, is Buff, siding with Rick now. Like, I don't like it.
No, I can definitely agree with that. If anyone who also knows the storyline or the real life quips of Buff Bagwell, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, he loves his mom. Like
that he does.
I think Judy Bagwell is almost as close to being as over as probably Buff Bagwell was, especially in the eyes and in the heart of Buff Bagwell himself.
That is true. So that's their segment. After this, we cut to the crowd, and Peyton Manning's in the crowd. Of course, he's in '98 here. Is this his rookie year in the NFL? He looks like he's there with a bunch of Colts players. They don't have the best seats in the house, which I thought was kind of funny.
Well, I think he was drafted in '97, so he would have already had 1 year in his under. I think he would have been starting his second year.
Okay, so yeah, this is October, something like that. So yeah.
Don't worry, I already got a picture of it in case I decide to use it as the artwork.
So they just show, he's there supporting the local, he's there with his local players here in Indianapolis. So we got some good street cred here, and it was kind of funny just listening to them talk about Peyton Manning. Like if it was the same thing here 20 years later, you're like, oh, there's Hall of Famer Peyton Manning and like all of his accolades. Back then, it's like, oh, this is the bright young quarterback that the Indianapolis Colts have. It was just kind of funny the way they talked about him. But after that, we get our Wall Street promo talking about how WCW was on Wall Street.
Oh, I think you meant VK Wall Street was making a return.
No, unfortunately not. Instead, they're talking about credit cards and how they got to ring the bell to start the stock exchange. And the entire time we heard the Hardys music for some reason. You have to imagine it was the network that did that. There must have been some whatever they.
Oh no, it was totally WCW, guys.
Well, no. So but what's funny to me is so obviously they must have played some music that is copyright, whatever. Why the network decided that we're just going to play the Hardys music here?
I think the problem is that I'm sure there's some pre-canned stuff. Like, why not just put Thunder's theme in there? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's such a random thing. Everybody knows all right, let's put it this way. If you're watching Thunder on the WWE network, I venture to guess you're probably in the same camp that you probably know the Hardys theme music. And so when that was probably playing, you're probably like, what the fuck is this about? And also, not really to talk about the music or anything, but when you were a kid and you saw this, didn't you really like? I remember really wanting one of those MasterCards.
Oh, absolutely! With like
I wanted a big sexy MasterCard for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But so that was that segment, and I just want to verify. Peyton Manning was drafted in '98, so he would have been a couple games into his career at this point, so very early on.
Oh, interesting. I thought never mind. I thought he was drafted in '97. Okay.
So yeah, nope. I just had to double check that one.
You just Lee Marshalled me. You just doubted my information and you looked it up on your own.
Well, I had to Mike Tenay you. So
that's true. That's true.
After the Wall Street promo, we move into our next match. Meng versus Jerry Flynn. So I feel like this is pre-tape. It has pre-tape match written all over it, but Meng is going to come out. Jerry Flynn isn't going to get an entrance treatment. He's already in the ring, and he immediately goes on the attack on Meng with all kinds of crazy kicks. But Meng's going to basically no-sell all of this, and then Tongan Death Grip out of nowhere. I gave this a 1.5 stars. I thought the match was pretty lame. And Meng just basically no-sold and then got his finisher. I don't know. It wasn't much of anything.
I gave it a 1.5 stars as well. I laughed my ass off when Tony said that Jerry Flynn gave it a good try. And also, I just thought that was funny because Jerry Flynn has had 2 matches against Goldberg, the second of which was a match that Goldberg wanted personally because he felt that he needed something to prove against Jerry Flynn. And then here we go.
And then Meng's just squashing him like nothing.
Yeah, and he's watching like nothing. Like Jerry Flynn had better matches with Goldberg.
Yeah, you're right. Speaking of Goldberg, after this match, we get a follow-up with Jericho, who's out in the parking lot now just with Ralphus. Ralphus is holding the 2x4, kind of laughing. Jericho says, Goldberg, he's got his Jericho 2, Goldberg 0 shirt on, and says, tonight he's going to be your daddy. So he's calling out Goldberg. He wants this, wants to go for that 3-0 against Goldberg. We cut back into the ring, and Meng is still in the ring, and out comes Chris Adams. So apparently Chris Adams was scheduled to wrestle next, and Meng hasn't left the ring, which Chris Adams has a real problem with. So he comes in, and of course he's going to get attacked, and this is going to lead to a Tongan death rip and the referee calling for the bell.
Because the bell is the one thing that Meng is susceptible to. I was also very sad that you didn't call this the Wrath match of the night.
That is true. That's fair. It is Wrath match of the night. Chris Adams was, in fact, supposed to wrestle Wrath. Wrath is upset that Meng ruined his match of the night. So Wrath is going to come out. He's going to shove Meng. The two of them are going to start tumbling around. Then there's going to be this fake missed chair shot by Wrath, which then he kicks him and then hits him with the chair shot, which Heenan tries to cover up and say basically Wrath was trying to debate what body part to hit with the chair. And that's kind of your segment, so we're kind of setting up for a little bit of a Wrath Meng feud.
You know what? I have a conspiracy theory about that fake out. I think the reason why he didn't do it was because first, when he was ready to swing it, Meng was just standing upright, and I don't know if he wanted to hit him in the head with a chair for two reasons. One, I don't know if he really wanted to do that. Anyways, just it's a chair shot to the head. I mean, 98, I'm sure everyone just took chair shots to the head. But also, I know he's not Samoan, but I know that, with those types of guys, it just seems like if Meng took a chair shot to the head, he wouldn't have sold it for anything. And I think that Wrath would have been better to kick him and, just put it on the back.
Yep. It's a fair point. But I'm just gonna go that it's they just screwed up, but I like your theory anyways. After this, we get our Saturday night promo, which was the most random thing I have ever seen.
I loved it. My faith in Saturday night has been restored.
We got music as they just kind of showed shots of wrestlers walking in, and we know that Alex Wright, Raven, Canyon, Rick Steiner, Vincent, Stevie Ray, and I think a few others are also going to be there. But it just totally caught me off guard. So they're still trying to sell me on Saturday night, Kyle.
Yeah, you know what? And if there were more years of it on the network, I'd watch it. But all we have on the network is from the early '90s.
Right, the good stuff.
Right, yeah, when that was the flagship show.
Right. After this, we're in the outside of the arena. The Four Horsemen have arrived. And we got a bunch of police officers there. Police officers are out there. Doug Dillinger's out there. And basically, they find out that there's a restraining order that's keeping the Four Horsemen from entering the arena. They have to stay 100 feet outside, from the arena. This is per Eric Bischoff. You can hear the crowd chanting, "We want Flair big time." J.J. Dillon's out there as well. Him and Doug Dillinger think it's bullshit, but it is what it is. They can't do anything. So they're all told they're banned and have to leave, with the exception of Dean Malenko, who they must have forgot. And
was a horseman,
right? And he is apparently allowed into the arena.
My guess was that probably because he was the only guy from the last week's show that either didn't verbally want to sexually assault Miss Elizabeth or beat Eric Buffoon in front of his family. So that I figured Eric Bischoff's all right, he's the only one that didn't outright want to do something terrible.
Actually do something worth getting a restraining order over. So
exactly.
It's actually a great theory. I'm going to buy into that one. But that said, they're Four Horsemen with Arn. They're all together. One, all for one and one for all. So they're going to leave together. Then we're going to move to our next match of the night. Out comes El Dandy, Kyle. I don't know about you. I got pretty excited. And then his opponent, Tokyo Magnum, and I got even more excited because I thought,
dude, I got so hyped for this.
El Dandy has a shot to win on Thunder, and I was pretty stoked about that. The match, though, I'm not going to rate the match because it really wasn't much of a match. I felt like the two of them were trying to show off at times, but it felt like a botched Cirque du Soleil. It felt very choreographed, but it was very botched. At one point, El Dandy goes to shake the ropes, and Tokyo Magnum is delayed when he flips off of it. I felt like they just kept mistiming things, and then we're waiting for claps in between. That laughter comes back, which Tony Schiavone is going to lose his mind again because he just doesn't want to. He just doesn't know what's going on. And as the match is really starting to heat up, I guess, out comes Scott Norton, bald head, goatee, power bombs for everybody, double disqualification. He's got the IWGP World title on his shoulder. He looks like $1 million, I think, here. And he's squashing El Dandy and Tokyo Magnum. I mean, come on, this guy just won the world title in Japan, and he's just going to do nothing more than squash El Dandy and Tokyo Magnum. Give the guy something else, please.
Dude, I feel so bad for his career in WCW. Like I'm not saying he's a fantastic wrestler. He's a better wrestler than I think people will write in the history books about him. We've seen him in matches where if you put him in with a good worker, it looks like $1 million. We've seen him fight Chris Benoit.
Benoit had a great match, yeah.
Yeah, so he's definitely capable of looking like what he's supposed to look like, which is a fucking brick house. And yeah, it's a total shame that I think that I don't even remember him ever having a title in WCW at all.
No, I don't think so. We'll have to look it up here in a minute.
Well, you go ahead and do that. You go ahead and move forward. I'll Tenay you this time.
Okay, no, that works. So that's it for that match. We come back from commercial, and the LWO is in the ring. So apparently the LWO is now a thing. We got Eddie Guerrero, Damien, and someone I didn't recognize. Kyle, you called him out as it's Hector Garza. So Eddie's forming the LWO, and he's got a strong backing with those three, I guess. Of course, they're blaming Bischoff for letting everything happen that has happened, and he's going to try to get El Dandy to join the ever-growing, ever-strong stable that is the LWO. Meanwhile, Tokyo Magnum wants a piece of it, and he says, "You're not Latino, you're Japanese, get out of here." Lee Marshall is going to start translating Spanish for us as he lets us know that Viva la Raza is, talking about long live the race. And he says that the El Patron is the patron of the group, and it's Eddie Guerrero. And Tony Schiavone cuts a joke that if you keep tuned, you're going to see Lee Marshall count to 10 in Spanish.
Which is Andrew Heenan was pissed off because I'm sure he probably wanted to say something like that.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, Scott Norton never won a title in WCW.
Okay, I thought maybe he'd be. My money would have been on a tag title once or twice, but okay. Eddie is then going to tell Eric Bischoff to kiss his behind, and we're out. But now the other LWO has grown by one more member. Kyle, you've got Hector Garza, Damien, El Dandy, led by Eddie Guerrero. It doesn't get much stronger than that.
You mean led by El Dandy at this point? He's the fourth man. He's going to carry the stable into the new millennium.
We'll have to see who else is going to continue growing in the LWO. But for now, we got a Scott Putski match. So Scott Putski is going to be wrestling Saturn. It's at this point that the commentary team lets us know Mark Curtis is undergoing surgery. Unfortunately, 11 months from now, when I say now, I mean in 1998, of course. Not 11 months from the current time, which I don't know. That's the future. But 11 months at 98. So like September of 1999, Mark Curtis is going to pass away. But he actually refs right up till the end. So the guy did what he did, was doing what he loved doing the whole time. Scott Putski, though, is able to break out of a cryonic kick in this match, which I thought, pretty much settled it, that Glacier's cryonic kick is better than Saturn's if Putski isn't going to job to it. As for commentary team, they don't really care much about this match. They're going to talk about Trick or Treat and Halloween. Heenan thinks Trick or Treating is below him and it's begging for food. Putski is, after kicking out of the cryonic kick, he's also going to kick out of the big splash that beat Psychosis last week. So now that's two big moves that Scott Putski is going to be able to get out of. Unfortunately, the Death Valley Driver is going to do him in. Saturn's going to win this match. I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was a good squash match for Saturn, but overall, not terribly exciting.
I went a little higher. Just because I think Saturn looked really good, and I think just Scott Putski was all right. I gave it 2.25 stars. Saturn really carried the match for Putski, which is a rough formula when Putski's the heel. I think we've talked before about, usually if you're the heel, it's, you're kind of given the reins to the match. You're supposed to kind of dictate it, kind of have the pace, especially if you're going to have a longer match. Like, I mean, this was not a squash by any means. Saturn does come out on top, and I don't think he had I wouldn't say he had much of a problem, but I wouldn't call this a face squash. Putski did get some, offense in, but the offense was limiting to say the least. Saturn made up for it when he was, fighting back. Also, Heenan thinks that you can use Casual GTX to heal sore body parts.
Yes, I'm glad you did mention that. I think I had it. And he says it's also good with cheap wine. So
I did hear that. I didn't put that in my notes, but I'm like, all right, Heenan, I think we get that you're selling the product as much as you can.
After this, out comes Disciple, Kyle, and he joins the One Warrior Nation, and all of a sudden now he's going to be wrestling in a match. Man, it's this guy hasn't wrestled in God knows how long. And then he's going to get on the microphone and cut a promo without Hogan here. I'm kind of nervous. He basically says he's sick and tired of Hogan running roughshod around here. He says people think I ride Hogan's coattails, and basically says I'm a man, I could stand on my own. That he made a name for himself back in the day. And then he says this guy Horace Boulder is Hogan's nephew and doesn't belong here. And says Horace, let's do this. As he basically sits there ripping on Horace. Horace was standing in the ring apparently the whole time because he attacks Disciple out of nowhere. At one point, Horace is actually going to do a splash onto the back of the Disciple, which I feel like would hurt him more than the Disciple. And then the Disciple is going to take a jumping stunner or the Apocalypse for his trouble. This match looked ugly. It was a 1.5 for me, and I can understand why the Disciple doesn't wrestle.
I gave it a 1.75. I only thing I thought to myself was the match was passable. To me, a 1.5. It goes along the lines of like, wow, this was a horseshit match. I don't think this was a horseshit match. It was like a Horace shit match. Get it?
Nice.
But I think Disciple at least looked okay. He's not exactly a great worker. I think this match was about as good as those two was gonna give us. I always thought the whole Horace being Hogan's nephew thing. I thought that was revealed at Halloween Havoc,
yeah,
as a shocking twist. So I didn't. Well, as soon as he was talking about or revealing this whole thing about Horace, I was like, wait a minute. I thought that was like the twist at the end of the damn match in Halloween Havoc. I'm like, okay, well now that even makes me hate the ending of Halloween Havoc even more. Because I thought that was part of the twist, like, oh my God, what's Horace doing here? But no, there's the reason why he's there. And I think overall the argument is going to keep on continuing with a couple of these matches where obviously this match didn't need to happen. It was more, I wouldn't call it a match. It was just more storytelling. But to clarify,
what story are we telling there?
Well, I mean, I think we're
other than the Disciple's his own man. Is that the story we're going with here?
Or we can tell the story about these two guys who are fighting over whose career Hogan made less.
Pretty much.
But it's just one of those things where like there's so many guys, so many talented guys on the roster, and they can't even get a 2-minute match because they wanted to put something like this in it. And I think that might be a reason why you gave it a 1.5 is just like the principle of why is this match even a thing.
Also, the finisher looks terrible when they're jumping together. Like it's like they were on a trampoline and we're like 1, 2, 3, stunner. It was.
It's the Apocalypse, dude. Don't get sued.
It is the Apocalypse. After the match, Horace is going to take out his frustrations on the Disciple on the outside, and then we move into our Halloween Havoc promo for Hogan and the Warrior. And it was like opera music, kind of playing with lots of scenes between the two of them from Nitro, I guess, because that's
I kind of liked
places.
it. I'll be honest,
it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. No, I agree. It was a solid promo. I feel
it was really long.
It was very long. I think that was probably the part I was like, okay, it went on a little long, but I thought it was pretty good for the most part. After this, Tony Schiavone's in the ring to, of course, that must mean DDP's coming out. Nope, psych, it's Jericho, which shocked me. I thought for sure it was going to be DDP because Tony only gets in the ring for DDP, but out comes Jericho with Gums or Ralphus, depending on who you ask. Heenan making jokes about his teeth and says he uses rope for dental floss. And this is actually where we're going to get our first sign of the night. And I got to admit, the signs here in Indianapolis, not very good. This sign said, please put me on TV. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do you one better. Instead of being on TV, on TBS Thunder back in 98, you're going to be on the Thundercraps podcast getting a shout out. So here in 2019, it doesn't get much better than that.
No, it's probably one of the highest accolades.
Absolutely. Of course, Jericho's getting down there and call him, talk about Goldberg. He's going to call him Greenberg. He's going to say he's ready to wrestle him. So, Schiavone, you need to introduce Goldberg. So, Schiavone kind of rolls his eyes, upon the request of Jericho and introduces him. And this is where we're going to get our second and third signs of the night before this match starts. And the second sign is going to say, DDP, if you think you're the people's champion, you better smell what The Rock's cooking. And there's a lot of grammatical typos in that. Or when I say typos, it was handwritten, but still.
You did the best you could.
Yeah. And then sign number 3 was a picture of Goldberg. It's somebody drew him, muscular, posing, but he's got Buff Bagwell's face on him. It kind of looked like it scared me as I looked at it. But
it looked very alien.
Yes. But I think I might tweet it out at some point because it looks sort of like if like a character artist was like drawing Buff Bagwell, but like using Goldberg's upper body.
That's what I was thinking too. I was thinking like if somebody was mugged and they were like a sketch artist for the police was trying to draw a face.
Yep, exactly. That said, we got Chris Jericho wrestling Goldberg. Nick Patrick is going to do the 10 counts. So Goldberg's counted out. Jericho's now beaten Goldberg 3 times, Kyle. So people keep talking about the streak about Goldberg. They have not realized Jericho has already beaten him 3 times.
Yeah, it's one thing. It's something that more people need to talk about, and we always talk about the inflation of Goldberg's record. I think at this point he's 5,016-0. But yeah, we keep on trying to argue, and really it's unfair to Jericho because Jericho, as far as I'm concerned, if Nick Patrick is in the ring or if someone's in the ring and someone rings the bell, I think that's a sanctioned match. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, if they thought this wasn't a match because Goldberg wasn't there, then they shouldn't be making the count.
I agree. So I think we should go back and just find out exactly what the record of Goldberg was when Jericho beat him the first time. And I think that's where we got to end the streak, right?
I agree.
Okay. So that which means Kevin Nash, sorry, man, you're not in the Hall of Fame. Because that was, I mean, you supposedly beat Goldberg's streak. No, I don't think so, buddy. You're going to have to come up with better accomplishments in your career if you're going to, get that ring, dude.
True that. After this, we're going to get our first replay of the night. And it's still photos from Nitro. We still can't get that live footage, but I know last week, Kyle, you mentioned how you really wanted to see this Bret Hart Sting stuff, and you didn't even care if it was still photos. So guess what? This week, you're getting still photos of Sting and Hart. They must have heard your pleas last week, and it's.
But I hate it. This is shit that you should have seen because it's like fighting in the back. This would have been cool to see.
Nope. Instead, you see like stills of him picking Sting up and then dropping him through a table. There was a chair attack. Sting's going to come back, and eventually they were both put on stretchers and driven out by ambulances. And then Tony Schiavone is still in the ring. Okay, now it's with DDP. Nope, it's actually Bret Hart. So Schiavone is just letting me down this week, interviewing all kinds of people in the ring. Bret Hart's going to come out here and open up by saying that Sting is stupid. Which was kind of harsh, I thought. But he does say, that's what Sting gets for listening to the stupid fans who told him to trust me. Then he's going to basically say, Tony, you don't need to be holding the mic. And this is where he issues his challenge to Sting at Halloween Havoc. Then he's going to let him know that Sting sucks. And he walks away, but then he comes back once more to just end the promo really strong by saying he hopes his mascara doesn't run. So
to paraphrase, Bret Hart thinks that Sting is stupid and sucks, and he wears makeup. Good.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
Nailed. Bret Hart, you are the best heel.
After this, we're going to get our Four Horsemen promo. This is just basically a very 90s feeling promo with a lot of quick cuts and just showing the Horsemen kind of dominating their opponents.
I still think it's ridiculous that the Four Horsemen have a promo on a show that apparently Eric Bischoff is in charge of. But yet they still put video packages on here under his nose.
It's fair. But that said, there is one Horseman who is allowed to be on this show, and here he comes, Dean Malenko, the Iceman himself. He comes out, he grabs a microphone, grabs a folding chair. He's going to sit it down in the middle of the ring and sit down. And he basically says, hey, you guys forgot to issue papers to me to keep a restraining order to keep me out of here. So I came here to wrestle. I'm a wrestler. It was real strong words here from Dean. That's going to bring Eric Bischoff out, who's going to say, you want a match, you moron? You're going to get one. So, of course, he's going to, have to get somebody tough. Maybe the Giant, maybe a handicap match.
What about Scott Norton? Put Scott Norton in there.
Yeah, there you go. Instead, out comes Jimmy Hart and the Barbarian. I don't know about you, but not first guy I would choose to dominate Dean Malenko.
Nor would I have thought that would have been a choice. He's in the NWO. Why don't you employ an NWO guy?
You would think so. That said, we find out that Barbarian's paid $500,000, and if he beats the shit out of Dean Malenko, he'll get close to $1 million tonight. So,
first of all, good for Barbarian.
Yeah, great. I think Jimmy Hart, as a manager, has done very well.
He is the anti-Stadiono.
So we get our match here: Dean Malenko and versus the Barbarian. Lee Marshall's going to immediately get kicked off the headset. That's going to put Bischoff on here. Bischoff's going to, as they're sitting there talking, Bischoff's going to say, "Cut back to the ring," because they're just showing him talking, which I thought was kind of funny. Says this whole thing with Dean not getting a restraining order was just set up for Dean to get beat up tonight. And he says the Horsemen don't draw money. As for the match itself, Barbarian, of course, is going to dominate early on, but then when he gets hit, gets knocked to the ground, that's going to bring Jimmy Hart up onto the apron. It's almost like clockwork. And that said, Dean Malenko's going to quickly get on put the cloverleaf on pretty quickly into this match. That's going to lead to a Barbarian tap out. Eric is going to end this by just slapping the ever-loving shit out of Tony with a sheet of paper. I gave the match a star and 3/4 because I thought the match was kind of garbage. You weren't really invested in it at all, but you were mostly listening to Bischoff.
Yep, and I definitely disagree with the rating on this one. I gave this 2.5 stars, and it has nothing to do really about the actual match. I mean, the match was okay. I mean, Barbarian.
Isn't that what we're rating is the match?
No. Well, no. I'm the presentation of the match from beginning to end is how I usually rate a match. I think that the match overall was fine. I mean, Barbarian kind of throws around Dean. Dean's the face in peril for the most part. He's going against, overwhelming odds, apparently, to taking on Barbarian. And I just thought that Eric Bischoff was a total treat on the commentary booth. It was I think he actually sometimes
he was. I give you that. Bischoff was great on commentary.
And just kind of like he was like the opposite of DDP last week, where I think DDP didn't contribute to anything to the Goldberg Raven match last time, other than diamond cutting Canyon at the end of it, and that was with him leaving the commentary booth. But this one, I was thoroughly entertained. He was hilarious, and when Dean won the match, as he basically goes off on Tony and attacks him with a piece of paper, like that whole thing, that was probably the most entertaining part of the whole show, and. Not to mention, the crowd actually was kind of into it when Dean Malenko won. So, the match is not a 2.5 star based on complete technical wrestling or jaw-dropping entertainment in the ring. But the crowd popped for it, and Eric Bischoff was in rare form. And I'm sorry, you got to give at least a 0.5 star for the abuse that he gave Tony with that piece of paper.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. With the exception of I just rated the match itself lower. But after this, we get Raven coming out. He's got a promo here where, we continue to hear commentary. We came back for commercial. Commentary team's talking about the truck and how production doesn't seem to know anything or not telling them anything. So they're still talking about this damn laughter that they're hearing. But Raven's here. He's cutting a promo. Basically says he fought his way out of the gutter. And he says, other people are always getting the breaks, like Diamond Dallas Page. He said he's a millionaire. He's wrestling with the likes of Jay Leno and DDP, and I get the flock, which made me laugh. Just totally shitting on the flock, saying that they're less than Jay Leno and Karl Malone. And then he says, Page can get a Playboy centerfold. What do I get? And then says, what about me? What about Raven? And then DDP's going to cut him off and says, what about you? You're getting banged. So
he's bringing back the old bang.
Yes, he is. So we get DDP versus Raven, which I was pretty excited for. I thought, okay, this is a solid Thunder match. Raven's going to immediately go on the attack. DDP's going to try for the quick diamond cutter, but of course it's reversed with a low blow. And commentary team blown away that DDP is going to risk his world title match in 17 days by wrestling tonight against Raven. Raven is going to try and DDP's going to try and Raven is going to try to take DDP and throw his legs into the ring post, but DDP pulls his legs in. It was like a bad looking reversal, and Raven still sold it. He probably shouldn't have. It looked awful. Raven is going to get back in the ring. Of course, you get the drop toe hold into the chair, take a drink. Raven is going to grab the chair to hit DDP with it, but that gets backfired as DDP is going to throw it back into his face. DDP is going to do his second spinning lariat of the match. Raven's going to lock on a sleeper, and then eventually they're going to start spinning around, reversing back and forth, diamond cutter. I gave this a 1 3/4. I really expected more out of these two, but I thought this match was sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, I should probably dial this down a little bit. I think I had on here 2.5 stars. I guess I'd give it a 2.25 because I did see it a second time and kind of thought the same thing. Crowd was hyped for the match, and really the crowd really needed something to get behind. This whole card has not been. I think that's the reason why Dean Malenko they cheered for Dean Malenko, because there really wasn't much to like get excited about, and so they finally had two big name guys, or at least big enough name guys, being in a match. It was pretty fast paced, even with a few headlocks and a sleeper thrown in there. DDP obviously is going to win. I don't think anybody was thinking that Raven was just going to, get one up on him. But it was a decent back and forth. I think the only other thing I thought to myself is this should have been their main event, because you got DDP who's main eventing the pay-per-view, and you got the guy who just recently had a world title shot against Goldberg last week. I think this would have been a good this would have been as long as you packaged it, because this did seem like this was a impromptu match. So like it looked like they weren't supposed to wrestle, but then DDP decided to come out, tell him that he's going to bang him, and then went in there and they had a match. But if they were to actually like set this up and maybe give a little bit more of a backstory, because they had one of the bigger feuds of '98. And they could have easily, pulled that out of the basket of like, hey, here's some actual like reason why they hate each other, and actually give us like some reason to be invested in a match between the two. But instead, it was just like DDP coming out, it's like, hey, Raven, shut up, you're getting banged, and then they have a wrestling match. So I was a little bit upset about if they were going to have a match, like, add some structure to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, and I do think that should have been the main event, but instead. We move into our main event, Kyle. We got Stevie Ray coming to the ring by Vincent, going up against Lex Luger, and Michael Buffer's back to announce this. Why? Why is Michael Buffer here for this one?
Because he wants us to let us know that if there's two people that hate each other's guts, then it's Stevie Ray and Lex Luger, apparently. Michael Buffer definitely made it seem like if you've never seen a wrestling show in your life and you said, I'm going to watch this Thunder and see what it's about. If you were to listen to Michael Buffer, you would have thought that Stevie Ray and Lex Luger have had a blood feud between the two of them. So I'd give Michael Buffer the silent clap of selling me if I didn't already know that Stevie Ray is just a guy that just wrestles all the time for the NWO, and Lex Luger, I guess, just his turn to be on Thunder.
Yes, and I guess Michael Buffer is here, Kyle. It is the two main event guys here on Thunder, so I think it makes sense for Michael Buffer to be here to announce who is Mr. Main Event, Mr. Thursday Night. We're going to find out, hopefully. But we also find out that a giant Hollywood star is going to come to Nitro on Monday, Kyle. So that's exciting, right?
It's Chucky.
Yeah. When Luger comes out, we're going to cut to the crowd, and some guy's got a wolf pack tattoo on the back of his neck. You think he regrets that today?
I mean, I'm a huge Wolfpack fan, and I would regret it.
It looks awful, and yes. God, yes.
If only it's just the reason of, I bet you I'll get on TV, then maybe I would do it, but it would have to be one of those ones that you can wash off.
Hey, he got on TV, but you never saw his face, so that's awkward. That said, as for this match, we got Luger out here. He's rocking a goatee this time, so he's got a new look going. He kind of gets dominated by Stevie Ray for a minute there. Of course, Vincent's going to get his shots in as you expect. Lex is going to drop one of the worst atomic drops I've ever seen. Couple flying forearms, and then here comes the torture rack. But that brings out Scott Hall. Scott Hall comes in for the attack. Now you got Scott Hall in here. It was a ploy. Kevin Nash is out of the arena because he sped away in that limo earlier. Hall was not actually there. He's back here. He's in this match now. Him and Stevie Ray are double teaming. Luger's trying to fight them both off, but he can't. Double team. Finally, Scott Hall is going to hold Luger back. Stevie Ray's going to hit Luger with the slapjack. And now we're going to call for the bell because the interference this entire time was completely okay, but don't you dare use that slapjack. I didn't even want to rate this match because it just was not. I mean, it was what we expected from original, like the first 15 episodes of Thunder with the bullshit clusterfuck DQ ending, and then this one was even worse because the bell didn't ring until like well into the interference.
What was your overall opinion of the swerve that Scott Hall actually tricked Kevin Nash? I felt like that was even empty.
I liked it a little bit because I did expect to see. I thought the show was going to end with Nash going in there and like the two of them like battling in the corner of that bar. So I guess I can understand that part. Like, okay, that's cool, I guess. But it was whatever. Like, I don't think. I guess it continues to push Hall's get one up on Nash. So it was fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like that the shock of Hall being in the building was supposed to be a surprise, but I don't know. I wish they also built more on that. I feel like I don't know. I feel like that's been the. I'll give my overall thoughts, but I feel like that's been like the running gag of this whole show has been a lot of decent ideas that I just think if they actually had some good structure and went all the way through with it, I think it would have been a much better idea than just, oh, there's Scott Hall and I don't know. Well, we can move on, but yeah, I understand that you didn't rate the match.
As for after the match, it's Conan's going to come out late. He gets attacked, and basically Vincent, Scott Hall, and Stevie Ray are going to beat down Conan and Luger, and the show's going to end with Hall doing his survey time. That's your Thunder. What'd you think about this week?
You know what? This is going to be weird to say because I did give a couple matches in the 2-star and plus, but as a show overall, I think it was a big waste. I think that there was a lot of good ideas that didn't get executed well enough. If I actually when I went back and watched the show a second time, I actually thought to myself, and this is the reason why I don't like this Thunder, the most interesting thing about this show. What do you think? If you were to pick one thing on the show that's like, oh, I wonder what's going to come of this. What do you think what do you think I would have came out of the show being like, oh, well, that's the most interesting thing to happen on the show. I wonder what's going to happen next week.
Who that laughter is, and if Tony's ever going to find it in the production team who was laughing.
All right. No, yeah, you got a good point. But no, honest to God, it's Meng and Wrath. That's honest to God. Like everything else about this.
Fair.
Everything about the show is like, all right, the needle's pushing a little bit or whatever. Like, I think it's like we already know this. A lot of this is the same song and dance. There wasn't really a lot of progression in the story. There's a lot of people who's telling a story, but I don't think they're actually progressing the story. I think it's just the same. It's almost like we're just stuck on the same page. Whereas at least this whole idea of like Meng, who's been squashing everybody left and right, and Wrath, who's been undefeated, and it looks like, with Meng and Wrath, fighting it out and everything, it looks like there's, neither one of them is letting up. So Meng, to me, was the highlight of the show. The Horsemen looked like they were nothing. There was almost no star power doing anything of note. And the wrestling was overall uninteresting. Yes, there were some matches that I was okay with, but I felt like none of them had good endings. I think we also kind of agreed to that it seemed like there was no real satisfying ending to any of the matches. I don't know. I just thought it was a pretty bad show, and I really can't wait for Halloween Havoc because I really need something to reset.
Yeah, no, I agree. This was a rough Thunder, and I didn't think it was very good. To your point, I don't think there was a lot of storytelling, and I still don't know why Michael Buffer was there. But if you haven't yet subscribed to our show, what are you waiting for? Because we give you all the great analysis, the hard-hitting analysis on every week's Thunder. And, you need to subscribe, let us know what you think about the show. Of course, you can always follow us at Thundercraps on Twitter, where we let you know. We tweet all about the weeks. We send out gifts and pictures and all kinds of stuff. And you can always go to thundercraps.com to catch up on all of our previous episodes. That said, go check out Thunder 36. It's October 15th, 1998, as we move closer and closer to Halloween Havoc as this card continues to build. And if the trend continues, we're going to have a pre-taped show here in Indianapolis. And if the live show was this bad, I really fear for next week. But we will have to see. For Kyle Hogan, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thundercrafts podcast.
We are green burgundy out of time. See ya.